All right. The topic for today's presentation is different from the one last night. We like this year, what we did basically, we looked a little bit into social network data sets, and like I think end of last year, this year was like very busy politically. We've seen quite a few interesting events, and I think that's actually very useful when you want to do like some data flow studies, because like they trigger interesting stories. And let's see if it works. All right. And this presentation basically covers some of our findings, some of the ideas that we like looking into, and we also hope to collect feedback, because I think it's not only us who is looking into this. I think we just happen to have access to some interesting data sets. So a quick thing about us, like as of this year, we joined this team in 3Micro. This is funky logo. It reads FTR, and we just do some research. So the world politics in a nutshell. Is anyone here from London? Have you seen these ads in London subway? I think that's a very nice one. It's I think what happens basically, like last year and this year, the world gets more and more polarized, and there is a lot of false information and false claims of spreading false information. So and I think that basically reflects this. See if it. So we mainly focus on Twitter data in this talk because we have access to daily full like Twitter dumps in 3Micro. And the story that goes back to why we have access to the Twitter dumps, there was a competition on Twitter for bot detection, and 3Micro participated, and I think they got something like 10%, but everyone else got like 2% success rate. So as a prize, like Twitter agreed to share the daily dumps with the company, and we just happened to be able to play with it. So I think last night in bar were very interesting T-shirt that basically reflects the core of our presentation. The whole point of us like looking into Twitter data, we want to know whether the stuff that we were looking into were there were humans or bots, and we came up with some techniques to answer those questions. So and we are here at Hack.lu, right? And Hack.lu also had imprint on Twitter. I don't know how many of you like trying to search for Hack.lu hashtag and see what's going on Twitter. Yeah. Have you seen that aside from like the main communication that people like chat about, like presentations and what's not, there's also some dodgy stuff going on Twitter, and they like use Hack.lu hashtags. Have you seen this? This is just the first day, because like it takes some time to run the query, but this is like the first day of Hack.lu, and we just start looking a little bit into this, and see, oops. So this is basically the main community, and I think most of you can probably see your Twitter handles here. If you can see who is like the most popular or the most talkative here, or like being frequently retweeted and stuff. But there are some people who like I don't know. Do you recognize these guys? Are they here? No, I did not see them. But they also like tweeted about Hack.lu, and when you notice what they tweet about is actually quite interesting. So they tweet like stuff like this. Maybe this is important for a conference, but what we realized, I think Hack.lu is just one of like hundreds of events that happen right now in October, like in this region. And if you go to there are some websites which provide which hashtags are popular, and you can see that Hack.lu yesterday, I think it was on like this 34th most popular like tag. I think what they do, they probably just scrap like sites like this and pick up popular hashtags, and they just combine them to spread this stuff. Accounts like this is not real CNN, even though it has the CNN logo, and they just bulk like create them, and those accounts normally live like a day or two just to distribute stuff. Sometimes there would be like spam. The picture on the Twitter post does not actually reflect the content. The content might be an exploit kit. It could be attempt to sell you some pharma. Like it's depending who their customer is. So I think it's all just run by Twitter bot operators. But it's an interesting thing that you see when you start poking around Twitter, that like a lot of stuff that happens on Twitter is not that straightforward, and a lot of people actually doing business on it, and this is just like a reflection of their business model, I think. And so we call this thing hashtag writing, because they just pick up popular hashtags and try to use them. So who can read this word? Привет. Yeah. This is yeah, just a minute. But so just a quick summary of what we've been trying to find in this study. So looking into social interactions in slice of like particular social events. So we pick up a few which I think were quite significant on Twitter this year. So there was a Manchester bombing. We have a list of them. There was a French election, and we'll just look at things that I think are kind of interesting to see. And we present our findings in form of, we actually like wrote a paper on this as well, and we were trying to link what we've seen on Twitter to the actual offerings in underground to see if we can find links between them. So a quick agenda. Vladimir has been reading some KGB books, and he found that the stuff that we find on Twitter actually matches some of the methods that are proposed in some of the older, like I think the books are from 1980s, 1990s on social control and stuff, and a lot of stuff that you see on Twitter actually reflects what is explained in the book. So we have a section where Vlad will just explain what he found in the books, and then we'll go through like discoveries on social networks as a slice on each particular social event. And then we'll also briefly look into the actual ecosystem, like if you had some money and you want to run similar campaigns, what you can find on, or what services are available for you. So we picked up a few interesting events. Coffee fee is a new word of 2017, right? I think it's a new invention by this very smart guy who tweets a lot on Twitter. Then there was a Macron leak when like just some data was dumped just before election in France, and I think that was also interesting, in particular to see how it was manipulated on Twitter. Manchester bombing was well, the event itself is sad, but what you see on Twitter, the things that are going on are very interesting in terms of studies. So, and there were a few more recent events like NFL scandal on Twitter and like blames that it was affiliated with Russian bots, which possibly is true. We actually found a guy who said he's not a Russian bot, and yeah, and a few others. So Vlad will go through the introduction.
Okay, so like when we started on the project internally called like fake news, we found a pretty interesting video on the YouTube, which called like lectures at FSB, which is like the same agency as KGB in USSR. And we found a lot of fundamental research which has been done like decades ago in different countries. And we will walk through this kind of research. So this is like a fancy picture, but it tells like how to rule the world. So which options do you have depending on time, depending on the power of you need, like on the long-lasting results. So we have like 6 priorities of management, and the lower you go, the easier you can reach your goal. So like the lower axis, it's a war. The next level is like drugs and alcohol. And the third level, it's money. So this is like a material stuff. And everything up to this, like next three levels, are non-material stuff. So money is here, and Infowar is like here. So this is propaganda stuff, and this is money. So if you have a lot of money, you can do it faster with propaganda, but this picture says that the result won't be long-lasting as for propaganda. And like for the upper levels, it's like things like rewriting the history. It's like manipulation about like Nashi and something, so somebody promote them, somebody blame them. So, and depending on the country and generation, like people do it. So it have to take quite a long time to reach results, but the results will be like very long lasting. So another interesting thing is called time law. So what it said, like if you see the generation changes, it's around like 25 years, and here you can see technology changes. So like before like previous century, the speed of change the technologies was slower when change the generations. And if you read it like from the other side, that means that your grandmother, your father, and your parents can give you and share your experience about the topic which has been developed before. What happened now, like the speed of technology change is faster than generation. So like nobody can use experience from previous generation just to make the decision. And with the thing that opened like a wide landscape for public opinion manipulation. Would you like to comment on this? So it's like the slide what we spotted on the...
And you can also find a video actually on YouTube, like there is a guy like teaching a lesson. And you can see this actually in many situations if you carefully look at it. Like for example, the recent Polish banking incident where the actor is Lazarus. If you analyze the artifacts which were used by different security companies to attribute it to either like North Korea or like some Russian operations or a group of like banking experts possibly hired by North Koreans, you can see more or less the same thing. So
this is a truth. What people supposed to hide.
So if you want to hide a truth, you create multiple versions of lie with different difficulty of discovering the lies. So every person who looks at the story and they try to recover artifacts in order to understand what the truth is, like who is the actual actor behind Lazarus, for example, they discover artifacts at the depths of their skill. So like some people just look at the string. Some people will look into binary sections code and find like pointers to Korean language, right? And then they stop at this because they're like, hey, I'm smarter than this guy because he did not find that I found. And that makes me think that my version of truth is accurate. But in fact, I think they basically all go on misleading paths. And the person who created the story, they just create multiple versions of truth with
lies.
Multiple versions of lies with different difficulties of discovering them. So, and the level of discovering the lie is should be satisfactory to your skills.
So another thing that this theory says, it's like if you want to handle any object, to do it comfortable, you have the object behavior should be predictable. So as long as an object could be a country, a company, a political party, or anything. So as long as behavior is predictable, it is easy to handle object. And like with the thing we see during a lot of revolution during last years. So like before initiate revolution, we see the street protests. So it's the way people force the behavior of the country is like unpredictable. So, and as long as unpredictable, like the government have to spend more and more resources to handle the situation. And in this case, it's easy to switch like to another like a trajectory or to another like a party or president or anything else. So what's the thing what means like manageability property from these guys? Another thing, it's like maturity of the crowds. So it's like in many societies, people accept anything we see on TV, and in our societies, we don't. So for example, in Russia, for quite a long time in 90s, we saw a lot of stuff which we accept, but later we found out it was a bullshit. So like Russian didn't accept anything, and we question more. Yeah, so like the way how to handle this kind of crowds, it's not about fake news, it's about biasing like the priorities. And here we can see research how Russia Today highlighted, I think, like Brexit vote or elections in UK. So one of the candidates has been highlighted like and with positive, neutral, and negative comments at the same volume, and another was like mostly positive.
They analyzed the media press on two different candidates from the viewpoint of like emotions that it gives you when you read the post. So, and you can see that for Cameron, it was 50-50, like neutral posts vs negative, like when there was some critics, vs the other candidate, there was mostly positive and neutral and very small amount of negative press. And this is how the like public opinion is formed.
So if people claims like about the fake news, it's not always fake, but it's often biased.
It's just the color of the post. Like all the facts in the news could be true, but it's a freedom of journalists to give different color to what they write. And that's how we believe it is exploited. That's why there was a lot of speculation about like fake news, but the thing is, it's not really the fake news that is fake. It's the feeling that you get after reading particular post.
There were a number of our research related to the topic, and like one of the things, it's called bandwagon effect. So generally, like the more people accept something, the more our people will accept the same thing despite the facts we have. Another research, it's like called like spiral of silence. So people often like silently accept instead of claim something. And another like a side effect called like the last minute swing effect, like when people during election change your opinion during the last 24 hours, despite the exit polls that happened like 2 or 3 days before. We found like an institute that's called Albert Einstein Institution. And if you read Wikipedia article, like it claims that the posts from this institution has been used at a number of color revolutions and ex-USSR countries and other countries, like to organize protests. So, and of course, like if you Google for something like fake news, it's easy to spot special sites which allow you to make a fake news as a constructor. So you can download something and just make your own fake news. Let's look on the social networks. So like now, like people rarely have opinion on any topic, and we use internet just to get impression from our people. And this kind of decisions made like for products, like online shopping, like, and even for political decision or investment. So here, like the Shanghai Stock Exchange, like a drop after some fake news.
And we also did poke around Twitter a little bit. A lot of fake news or like fabricated facts that you find on Twitter actually are not politically related. They're mostly around finance. And you will see that there are schemes, like known schemes called pump and dump, which were widely used in spamming. So basically, what people basically were doing, buying stocks from less known company, start a spam campaign, like mass spam campaign, wait until the price for the stock goes up a little bit, dump what they had, and get the money in the stock. So basically, after the spam campaign, the price of the stock will return to its like more or less like original value, and they get away with money. So what we noticed that on Twitter, you basically see the same thing, and you can cross-correlate people posting like through bots on particular companies to the curves on for this particular company on the stock market.
So now we will briefly review what's available on the social networks. So one of the terms is called publics. It's like groups in the social networks like Facebook, like VK in Russia. And here is the site which allow you to buy this kind of group. You can see a number of people in the group. You can choose like a political topic, like computers, music, and any like religion or advertisement. And you can buy a group in the social network with like 100,000 people. And here's the price, it's around like 500 euros.
So they basically create groups on social networks, they pump them up so they get like real people in the group, they promote them, they like invite people. All the groups are shaped towards certain political agenda, and then they sell this group, so you can use them for your own.
So people can buy this group and leverage for their own task. So Telegram become more and more important thing because like Telegram channels, it's like underground forums like 3 or 5 years ago. So found a lot of channels on the Telegram, which are more valuable than analysis of dark web because everything is available there and you don't need to have like a special access or to bet on something.
And Russia started, I think the reason why we see a spike of Telegram channels and a lot of both underground stuff and like the political opposition moving to Telegram is because in Russia they start clamping down on like lots of other messengers. Like I think Line right now is not available within Russia. Some of the other messengers where they did not agree to share data, they basically filter it out on country level. And you can see a lot of activity start moving towards Telegram. A lot of people who think they are anti-government or anti-state or anarchist kind of types, they go to Telegram to search for groups that suit their political agenda. But what they don't realize that some of those groups, they basically also tradable good. Like someone basically creates a group, promotes it to get enough people, and then sells it to other people who want to start building certain political agendas.
So like and the same situation for any our like a social network. So for example, here like a software to post on Facebook, on VK and our site, like to automatically promote your messages among the many accounts.
And the funny thing about this is a lot of other like CEO is kind of not very legal, but this area is gray. So there is no law that says you're not allowed to bullshit people, right? So that's why a lot of companies which provide the services, they don't try to hide. You can find their address, you can find their phone number, you can actually call them and ask for a price list.
Yeah, and bots is a really buzzword, but what happened now in Russia, where is the stock exchange for likes and all this kind of promotion, and you can choose like you need like to do your burst with bots or with live people, because like many people have small businesses and they want to promote their online shops, so they exchange their likes and comments like a human written comments on the other side to get positive feedback on their own side. So generally, like it's pretty easy to get real comments, real likes from real people instead of bots, as generally people think like what merely happened.
And I think that's where actually Twitter has a hard time, because for Twitter, they have this binary problem, bot or not bot, right? So for like real humans, they supposed to let them like continue using the accounts. For bots, they're supposed to block them. But what you realize that, in fact, the accounts that you see on Twitter, which are being used to manipulate like reposts, retweets, they're kind of bots, but they're actually controlled by real humans. So it could be like one person controls like 1,000 accounts. So, and they make them appear as like it's a regular person posting. And that what makes Twitter job very hard. Like if they block this guy, then this guy would go and complain, hey, you blocked my like real Twitter account. But if they don't block actual bots.
Yeah, so, and the same market available not only in Russia, but on English-speaking, Arabic-speaking, and Chinese-speaking communities. So, but the thing we found, like in Russia, it's usually like twice cheaper when in foreign countries.
And if you look deeper into some of the Twitter applications that you find on App Store or Google Store, you will see that there are third-party Twitter applications that's supposed to provide you like better experience of using social network. But what in fact they do identity theft. So they allow you to use some extra features like auto-follow, auto blah, blah, blah. But they will also convert your Twitter account into bot. So they will also be like posting stuff on your behalf, which you're not aware of. And I think this problem is not under radar right now, but this is like one of the ways how these guys get real human Twitter accounts.
So very interesting service on the YouTube. So we suggest you like for 6,000 euros, put your video on the top 5 videos on the YouTube. So like you order these services and your video will be like on the top of the YouTube, despite the content of the video. And it costs like just less than 10,000 euros. And like for Instagram, we're up to 1 million likes and it costs like 15 euros. So it's like pretty easy to promote accounts in many social networks. But the other thing we found, like the voting systems like Change.org are really abused with underground services.
So who knows what Change.org is? All right, anyone else? So Change.org is used to put petitions online and get people like vote for this, and apparently like create some pressure on the government to like make changes. But in fact, you can just go and buy voting services from Change.org. Like here, the reason why we have the screenshot, because there was a dispute between the guy who bought a service from this company and the company owner. So this guy just posted like that he placed an order for certain petitions, number of upvotes on Change.org. And
yeah, so it's like
you can see the price, how many votes he bought. And
votes.
These were upvotes to remove some politicians from like Russian government unit.
So, and like you can buy even like Amazon reviews in China.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people buy stuff on Amazon, and like in order to, whether you like to make decision whether you want to buy or not particular thing, you usually read reviews, right? So, and have you like noticed that the thing with those reviews is that some of them look a bit strange, like more or less automated, and that's actually true because there are portals where you can buy reviews for only like 10 RMB per review, and they give you 5-star review either on Amazon, eBay, like anything. So you basically just pay money, get the thing done. And there was one guy here yesterday who works for a company that helps these guys to, like, once you sell stuff in Europe, like send money back to China. So I think this is like just part of the same ecosystem. So, yeah, let's take a look at Twitter. So Twitter is one of the hot commodities in this market. It's not the only one, it's just one of them. And Twitter accounts with some history and particular social impact, they have value because you can start promoting your information and people trust those accounts. So there are websites like Twitter Stock where you can basically just go and buy accounts with a high like cloud scores, and use them.
So, and here is one of the examples when the picture with lion has been used on the Twitter post. So it's the same lion, but the Twitter post claims very serious things. So here is one of the cases when fake news has been spotted.
Yeah, and some of the approaches that we use, we actually have automated bot detection on Twitter data, and we look at account names, account description, similarity between avatars, similarity between Twitter lines, and look whether there are accounts which behave similarly. Like they could have different settings, like different language names, different names, but they could repost more or less the same stuff in different sequence. And with Twitter data, you actually get timestamps when accounts were created, when posts were made, so you can compare the time zone to the timestamp of tweets, whether like a normal person supposed to be awake at the time. And so we have scripts for this. But I think we'll skip through this because we don't have much time. I want to show findings. One other thing is that we noticed there are a lot of media companies which also post themselves as social media companies as well. But what in fact they do, they maintain multiple Twitter accounts which trigger false positives for us. But also these companies, they do buy bots to promote their stuff. And we will see this on some of the illustrations. So this is when Donald Trump posted his famous coffee fee post. That's what his post looked like. So that's Donald Trump. That's a crowd of bots. So what we realized, there are a lot of bots that just monitor Donald Trump's Twitter account. And when he posts, they ride on the wave. So what they do, we found a number of, some of the bots, if you look into the description of the source, who posted, they actually say they bots. And we found lots of bots source code online. And some of the bots, if you get the source code, you actually get their credentials. So you can get a copy and start posting on their behalf. But what is interesting, they try to use publicity of Twitter's account to promote their accounts. So what they will do, they will either repost. Some of them will make some modifications to post. There was one which was interesting, Trump Twitter spell check bot. So for every Twitter Trump's post, they will run it through spell check. And if there was a spelling mistake, they will automatically post, oh yeah, there was a spelling mistake in Trump's post. That was funny, yeah. But what is interesting that once you start slicing the Twitter data, you will notice that there would be a particular Twitter users, and just have a group of followers who don't talk to anyone. And if you if you look at it by eye, you can see a lot of the follower names, they seem to be machine generated. There's certain pattern, combination of names, numbers, and that's basically a very typical pattern of bot activity on Twitter. We have some scripts where we do a bit of community detection, so we try to break nodes communicating on Twitter into communities, and then we see just who talks to whom. So Macron's leak. So if you take we took the first few hours when Macron leaks data was published, and I think what is actually interesting about the Macron leaks data was that they dumped the data just a day before the election. And as in any country with democracy, media is not supposed to communicate within certain amount of, the local domestic media is not supposed to communicate or post anything in regard to any of the supposed to be elected candidates. And I think they exploited this, because the situation that was created with Macron leaks was that no local media was allowed to comment on what was posted, and it was open battlefield for external forces to basically manipulate people's opinion within the country. Because if you're outside of the France, you're not supposed to follow this regulation, right? So they can't even sue you. So, and you can we colored this graph by the language. So there is half of it that was mostly French speaking, and half of this which was English speaking. But if you start drilling down into some of the posts, yeah, this just ranking on which posts within first few hours were like the most popular ones. And you will realize that there was a lot of abuse going on. There were some posts which were like promoting tweets. There were some posts that were trying to promote their own agenda. There were some people realized that Macron leak was a hot topic, and they were like just like selling stuff with the Macron leak hashtag. And what is interesting when you look at the visualization is not the main crowd, because this is like mostly, this is probably like English speaking, like socium, like group of people who were interested in the leaks. This was the French-speaking socium that was interested in the leaks. But then if you start looking into the small groups which did not talk to the main core groups, I think those groups were like interesting for us, and we start zooming into them, and we realized that was unsuccessful attempts to promote particular data. So this is one of the examples. I think I'm not sure which. I think it's one of these clouds. I'm not sure which one, but it's one of the clouds that like we just zoom in, and you will see this guy. He had a lot of friends. Those friends never talked to anyone else, and they were like talking about Macron leaks. Within the visualization shows the first hour when Macron leak happened. So, and what you will notice that he has a lot of friends with very strange logotypes and strange names as well. And what we realized, we actually think this guy might be like real or fake, I'm not sure, but he has a lot of bot followers, and whenever he posts anything, those bot followers basically automatically retweet. This is within the first hour. This is the people who automatically retweet whatever he was commenting on Macron leaks. We found that some of the social identities, this guy in particular, they use those political events to just promote their persona. This guy also, like, if you look at, we actually looked at this guy across different multiple, like, social events this year, and with every event you see pattern like this. So there would be a group of people talking about certain social events, and then it would be him talking, and he just has a group of followers who doesn't talk to anyone else. And if you look, this is actually a real person. You can find his interview online, and he poses himself as a political expert. But what in fact he does, he buys bots, and for every post that, well, not every, but like the important post that he thinks he makes, he basically buys the bot retweet service. And there was, what was strange that the Macron leak thing was like happening in France. It probably had impact on France. It probably had impact on some of the English-speaking people as well, because everyone was trying to find like a Russian trace in it. But what you will notice that some other political figures, for example, this guy, I think he's from Turkey, they were writing on the same hashtag, retweeting some Turkish political news with the Macron leaks hashtag as well. And most of the followers that are here, they were actually bots. What we realized, well, we published this information with the Twitter accounts as well, and we sent some of the data to Twitter. Twitter apparently is doing a very good job. We realized that some of those accounts, they got blocked within like 2 days after this kind of abuse. But what you need to know is that all of those accounts are disposable. So they create them, they live for 1 or 2 days. They're being used to promote certain events, because once event is, so Twitter doesn't count, I think, number of retweets of blocked accounts, but while the account is not blocked, if certain post has significant number of retweets, it will still make it to the like popularity list. And I think that's basically the whole point of having this disposable accounts. And if you look at some of the bots, you can see they basically take some of the popular hashtags and some of the like local hashtags and just try to promote local political events on hashtags of global political events. And that's just illustration of like other bots that were following the same person or like retweeting the same person. You can see that they basically retweet more or less the same tweets, but in different order. So I believe there is probably a media company that controls all of these accounts, and they just like, they have orders from different customers on retweeting particular posts, and they just randomize and like retweet them. And what we found when we were poking around, we were like, hey, there is a German election that is coming. Let's see if we can find any interesting examples in Germany. And we found this person who poses himself as the media person. There is actually an interview with him in German, where he says that he's a media, like social media expert, blah, 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 and he has his own infrastructure to run the social media campaigns. But we realized he just has a bunch of Twitter bots, and every time he posts stuff, he uses his Twitter bot group to promote his tweets. And or I think he actually buys it from like other companies, because the same Twitter bots that retweet his tweets also retweet like some pornographic content and like what's not. So and if you look at, so we took like just 1 hour visualization of like German-speaking tweets, and if you see, this guy basically stands out. Like you can see like people talking to each other and retweet each other, and there is like normal communication going on. And then you can see this guy and just like bunch of bots like retweeting his stuff. So Manchester bombing event, like we also took a slice like of what was going on within the first hour, and we colored it by language. So I think like dark blue one is English. This is Portuguese, because there was the reason I think why there was a significant number of people retweeting in Portuguese, because there was one of the Portuguese like popular stars that commented on the bombing. And then you can see like other languages. I think maybe that's Spanish. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, Spanish and Portuguese. And what is interesting that for all these buckets of like retweets that, and we group them also by time. So if the time is close between the retweets, then we will put the nodes together. And what you will notice that a lot of like high-level political like figures on Twitter, they have a number of followers, which I think are just automated bots that like whenever like Jam Police like tweet stuff, they would just like retweet. CNN, BBC. And if you start zooming in, you can also find like failed promo campaigns. So someone got their bots to start. So if it's part of the bigger cloud, it means that they use the bots to retweet some stuff, and then there are regular users who start retweeting stuff that was retweeted by bots because it got popular, it got into high popularity list. But if you see if you start zooming into the clouds, which kind of stand on the side, like those ones, you will notice that this is basically a failed social media promotion campaign. And this is just like one of the examples. There is a Twitter account called Jimmy Fans, and he has a bunch of people like retweeting, like who was retweeting his post on Manchester bombing. And if you look into these accounts, all of them, they look a bit dodgy. Like some of them are already blocked by Twitter, some of them are not. Like many of those accounts, they don't have like any tweets. Some of them have like small amount of tweets, but like maybe in Arabic. And I think, honestly, I think these accounts all belong to some media company, and they just like bots, which are being controlled by a media company.
And you can see Vitaly again.
And you can see so our friend Vitaly also appeared in this campaign, and he also like with his friends. So that's him. That's his bot group. So NFL and Take a Knee, more or less similar stuff. You'll see like I think some of the media people in the US, but it's more or less the same thing. They have their own like bot groups and who just retweet whatever they say on NFL. So they just, I think if you look in Twitter as information waves, they just write on that information wave, trying to promote their social persona. just example of another similar actor and his bot friends. And if you start looking into these bots, they all look more or less the same. So I think some of the bots, they might belong to the same company, and that's how, like, if you, and they also being outsourced, for example, by pro-Twitter, or pro-Trump groups to, like, retweet the Trump support images. So it's really interesting that the same person who is retweeting anti-Trump messages, he is also, like, retweeting pro-Trump messages. But what, in fact, it is, this is basically a Twitter bot, and they just serve different customers. Just more examples, like, of Twitter bots. And I think Twitter has a hard time dealing with this, because even though they know this is a Twitter bot, but this Twitter bot is controlled by a real human, and real human is trying to make it more like a human thing. So if they block it, I think they would get a lot of complaints. And also, it's like a gray area if you start blocking anything that is similar. Yeah, I think we're almost done. Sorry, we're eating into your, but there is a free lunch, right? So just another. Yeah, I think
such thing as a free lunch.
Interesting. One of the bots, he was actually saying that he's not a Russian bot. I think that was a hilarious finding. So I think with this we're probably done. We wrote, like, a paper on this. There is a couple of other, like, things that you can read if you're interested. So with this we open for questions, or
questions at lunchtime.
Yeah, or questions lunchtime. And thanks a lot.